It's a very important part of the show here. Of course, you guys have a licensed New York tour guide up on stage, and we're in. That's right. That's right. Which means you guys want to experience the city as it was meant to be experienced in the basement, you know? So it's time for a tour with Tom, baby. Let's do it. Yeah. Check it out. I used to be a tour guide. That was me. Look at me pointing at stuff. I'm a trained actor, too. I play sports sometimes and dabbing rat. All right, great. Today we're going to be doing a tour of a neighborhood you guys may have known. We've done a lot of tours here, 16th episode. Today we're going to be doing a neighborhood that is very synonymous with wealth, baby. You guys know Central Park West is where all the, famous actors and musicians and writers live. Well, the Upper East Side is where the people who sign their checks live, baby. And that's what we're doing today. We're going to be doing the Upper East Side with its mansions, its Gossip Girl, its tycoons. People like the late businessman David Koch and the late creep Jeffrey Epstein. All right. So let's just start from the beginning, baby. Here we go. All right. Oh, and also you can also see the old ones that I've done on my YouTube channel. Not a big deal. Check them out. All right. Let's go. So, we're starting at the beginning, huh? Look at that. It used to be fields up there. All these crazy fields. Remember, this is the north end of the island. Lots of Native Americans. Remember, this is the Lenape land. The Waquasgek were actually the part of the Lenape that were located in this area of Manhattan. So you had Native Americans living there. Eventually, it became farms because of the rustic nature. I did some digging. I was able to find some pictures of those farms. There's the Upper East Side farms. I went through the library's collection, and you wonder what they looked like. This is a good example of what they may have looked like back then. This is actually Gracie Mansion. You ever been to Gracie Mansion? It was built by a man named Yeah, we're a big fan of Gracie Mansion here. Archibald Gracie. He's the guy who built it. Archibald Gracie said he was he was a socialite back in the late 1700s. He was partying like it was 1799 and built this thing. Pretty cool. He was friends with lots of famous people, including one of the founding fathers. And there is actually something in this building that will kind of harken back to this person. The founding father was Alexander Hamilton. That's right. That's an actual picture. And this fireplace, actually, it used to belong to the Bayard family, and it is the fireplace that Alexander Hamilton died in front of after his duel with Aaron Burr. Kind of crazy. If you listen closely, you can hear the ghost of Alexander Hamilton. Ooh, I'm not gonna waste my shot. Ooh, I can't believe people paid $10,000 to see my play. Sounds like something Jefferson would do. He sucks. Okay. Anyways, a lot of history at Gracie Mansion. It's still up on the hill there in a very busy neighborhood. Still there, a lot of history. In fact, Hamilton courted his first investors for his newspaper, the Saturday Evening Post there. You guys may know it by its new name, the New York Post. So if it wasn't for this house, we wouldn't get such great headlines like this one. Huh? Or this one. Oh, come on, man. We owe Gracie Mansion big time. Another piece of history is that since 1942, this is where the mayor has lived because Fiorello LaGuardia was suggested from Robert Moses to get out of his neighborhood and move in here for issues of national security. That's how you know your neighborhood is bad. You got to get out of there for national security. All the mayors have lived here up until Bloomberg, who took a look at this house and thought, what a dump, Typical billionaire, that's what happens. The billionaire has to have his own, human furniture. I don't know what they use. Bunch of friggin' sociopaths. All right, let's keep it moving. Now, an important thing to know about the Upper East Side is that it's a huge area, okay? Very hard to cover in just one walk because it's basically three neighborhoods, one of them being Lenox Hill to the south, named after a man named Robert Lennox, who was a Scottish immigrant who bought up some of the land in 1818. He bought it from Archibald Gracie. Started speculating, baby. You know what that means? It means say goodnight, Gracie. Goodnight, Gracie. Because rent's going to go up, people are going to start spending money, and that's exactly what happened. Now, Robert Lennox, actually, here's an interesting fact, by the way. In this area of the Upper East Side was a place called Jones Wood. Now, Jones Wood is actually where the original Central Park was going to be. The original Central Park wasn't going to be located where it is today. It was actually going to be in this place called Jones Wood. So next time you're in Central Park on one of your budget-friendly dates, tell this to your date. You're going to impress her so much that she's going to tell you she needs to go because she's got to wake up early for work. You're welcome, baby. That's right. And so there was a lot of big back and forth with the heirs to this land, and they eventually, it was too much of a pain in the butt. They stumbled on the area for Central Park, and that is where it is today. Pretty cool, huh? And it is actually kind of funny because Central Park it wasn't going to be central, huh? That sounds like a Jerry Seinfeld thing. It was going to be, oh my God, what's the deal? You're going to call it Central Park? It's not even central. They call it Out of the Way Park. Oh my God, Larry David was the brains behind my show. All right, in Lenox Hill is also located this thing. This here is at the north end of Lenox Hill. This is called the Frick Mansion, named after Henry Clay Frick, who was actually a associate of good old Andrew Carnegie, who we would talk about later. But it was the site of what used to be the Lenox Library. The Lenox Library was Robert Lennox's collection. It combined in the late 1800s, early 1900s with the Tilden Trust and Andrew Carnegie's collection to create the New York Public Library, which was built specifically for the purpose of filming Sex and the City. I don't know if you guys knew that. All right, let's keep it moving, baby. All right, so here we go. Yorkville is the other neighborhood. This is the second neighborhood. It's called Yorkville. It is over closer to the east, closer to the water, 70s and 80s area. And it is famous for being a center of European immigrants, baby. There they are. Look at them. So, Europeans come here. One of the things that brought them here was the elevated train. The elevated train goes up 2nd Avenue, 3rd Avenue in the 1800s. Yeah, that song sucks. Really, really, really terrible song. I think U2 had maybe like one good album, let's be honest. All right, here we go. So they build the elevated trains, 1800s. They're on 2nd Avenue, 3rd Avenue. That's close to the east side. Guess what? So that brings the common folk, the people who aren't rich and all that, brings them over to the east side. That's what Yorkville was. Europeans, okay, right? They also had the Harlem Railway, goes up 1830s, also connected via Madison Avenue and also Lexington Avenue. Those were also created in 1830s. This is all connecting the area. Remember, the more mass transit you have in a city, the more foot traffic you're gonna make it in other parts of the city. Take note, other cities in the United States, you can't just build a Mediterranean-style house, put a Margaritaville there and expect people to walk around. What the hell's wrong with you? You gotta build mass transit. Anyways, I'm hard. Okay, here we go. So you had the Germans. The Germans move in. Okay, the Germans are actually, this was actually 86th Street. 86th Street used to be known as Sauerkraut Boulevard. That was what it was called, man. That sounds like something a racist would call it. It's like, yeah, 85th was closed, so I gotta take Sauerkraut Boulevard. There we go. God dang it. But that was actually what it was called, Sauerkraut Boulevard. Tons of Germans there in the late 1800s. Early 1900s, and one of the reasons they moved there was actually, well, first of all, they also moved to another neighborhood known as Bushwick. So it was either Bushwick or Yorkville at the time. Those were the two neighborhoods they moved at that time. So if they didn't like Brooklyn, well, and it was they moved to, Yorkville because, Brooklyn 9-9. Come on. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Language. Now, one of the reasons they moved was because of a thing called the General Slocum disaster. If you don't know about this, you're missing out on very important New York history. The General Slocum happened in 1904, and it was a boat that sank in the East River carrying almost specifically women and children from a church in the East Village, which was known as Klein Deutschland at the time, and it sank, killing like 1,200 people, and mostly women and children, defective life vests. People were watching from the coast of the actual island, watching women throw their children in to the water with life vests that were defective and watching them just sink to the bottom. It was a total nightmare. This is the worst tragedy in New York City before 9/11. It was a horrible, horrible time. I know that's very depressing, so here's a picture of my cat. Yeah. Yeah, and she actually just got spayed in the last month, and she was really, really mean about it. But I just remind her, I was like, look, it could be worse. You could have been on the General Slocum. Okay, so you need to relax. All right, so let's keep it moving. More Europeans moved there, okay? It wasn't just the Germans, huh? There's still a little bit of Hungary there today, but back then it was famished. Language, hello. All right. Also, too, you had other parts of Eastern Europe going into the neighborhood around that time. They walked around the neighborhood and they said, you know what? Czech, please. We're moving here from the Czech. Okay, sorry. That was bad. That was bad. I'll give you that one. Okay. So this is the other one, okay? You have Carnegie Hill. This is the last of the three big ones. This is Carnegie Hill. This is up past like the 80s and up to like the 90s on the 5th Avenue to 3rd Avenue. And it's named after Andrew Carnegie. Oh, look at that guy. That's Andrew Carnegie. Cool guy. All right, great. Anyways, you might know him from his little shed that he built up there. Look at that thing. 64 rooms. What the hell? 64 rooms. That's crazy. I'm sure if you asked me, would have said, that's one for every one of Mrs. Carnegie's moods. What a waste. Anyways, this is built today at the site of the Cooper Hewitt Museum, Cooper Hewitt Design Museum. Cooper, very famous families, by the way. Cooper, as in Peter Cooper, the industrialist Peter Cooper. Hewitt, as in the former mayor, Abram Hewitt. That's right. Design, as in Johnny Q Design. I don't know. Anyways, you get it. You get the point. All right, here we go. Now, Carnegie. Carnegie is a very important guy. This guy made his fortune off steel, right? Made a lot of money off steel. And at the end of his life, he sold to J.P. Morgan for over $400 million, you know, rolling in dough. But this guy actually wrote a book, this is a real thing, called The Gospel of Wealth. For those of guys who don't think that capitalism is a religion, there you go. It is a religion. There's a gospel, and he wrote it. In his book, he says, a man who dies thus rich dies disgraced. That's what he believed. Very outdated take, if you ask me. That's not exactly what billionaires are doing today, but that's what he believed. Pretty crazy. This is Andrew Carnegie, did a lot with his money. But we're going to keep moving. Now, another thing in the Upper East Side important to know, Park Avenue. This is an interesting fact. Park Avenue didn't exist before the 1900s. The reason it was built was because of Grand Central. Grand Central electrified its trains so it no longer needed the open air that it used to be. Look at that. That's what it used to be. You had open air because they needed to get all the soot and stuff out, right? So there was no Park Avenue north of Grand Central. Once they built Grand Central, they were able to pave over all of that, right? They were able to pave over and create what we know today as air rights. Oh, now we're learning stuff. And since this was the early 1900s, it was the cool place to be, man. I want to live on Park Avenue. I want to have my office there. In fact, just south of Park Avenue was known as 4th Avenue, below Grand Central. But guess what? All those people were like, damn, those people on Park Avenue are way cooler than us. We want to be Park Avenue. So they pushed the city to change their name to Park Avenue. That's right, some things are timeless. You never want to be a loser. You know, you want to be cool. So this brought money, it brought companies, it brought more people, and this is why you have Museum Mile around here, because that's where the money is, baby. You have museums all up Museum Mile on 5th Avenue. This is the highest concentration of important museums in the world, which sounds like an absolute waking nightmare to my 8-year-old self. You know, let's be honest. What the hell? Who the hell wants to visit that many museums? Are you kidding me? Look at that guy. I grew up in Florida. That's why I have a Y on my hat. They made us have our sex chromosomes on our hats. All right, sorry. It's ridiculous. Okay, well, anyways, let's keep it moving. Now, another thing that it's famous for today is the diplomats that are located there. You have over 20 diplomatic missions to the UN are located here. They take all these nice mansions. Look at that. You got India. Oh, you had another one. I think it's Russia. You have France. And why wouldn't all these people want to live there? Why wouldn't they all want to have their missions there? They have proximity. They're next door neighbors to people like Madonna and people like Jeffrey Epstein. You know, that's right. You guys are all like, whoa, that's so, you have no idea. Every time I used to do tours in the Upper East Side, that was like the #1 question I got. Where did this guy live? It's kind of crazy that he ever existed, but yeah, that was his house right there, and then someone bought it for a lot of money. You know, okay. Let's keep it moving. Here we go. So, Upper East Side, baby. That is pretty much it today. I have time to go into everything. There's so much more to the Upper East Side, but today it is a very, very fancy neighborhood, very expensive, but lots and lots of history. There's buildings there like 740 Park Avenue, the richest building in the entire world. That's the richest, they say, the richest building in the entire world. The most billionaires, the Koch brothers live there, Schwartzman, all these big billionaires. So it's an impressive place to go. You should check it out. I ain't got time to get into more of it, but that's the Upper East Side, baby. What do you think? You know, not bad. Not bad for 15 minutes. Not bad. Whew, I'm sweating.